Hi everyone, so happy to be here with you. Back for another solo episode. I'm looking at sort of taking a zoomed out approach to how I do these solo episodes and really thinking, really consciously about the questions that you guys are asking me sort of more collectively. So I'm trying to go through as many comments as I can, which is really hard on, especially on TikTok and on Instagram, and really just trying to gather some information from my group coaching programs. Also, if you're not already, I have a paid community over on Substack, and we do coaching hours once a month, which is just Q&A time over Zoom, where you guys can meet with me and we can ask our questions and you can get those personalized answers to your questions. So definitely check that out. I'll throw the link in the show notes. But what I'm getting at is that I'm trying to sort of find the common threads of what keeps getting asked, or what is the thing that really is a need right now in terms of like, how do we address this and what do we do? So I am going to highlight in this little mini episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about how do we help, or how do we ensure is probably the better word, to not raise entitled kids. I get asked this question a lot, and I think it's an interesting question because if we sort of sit back and think about what it means if we're describing somebody as entitled, it really is someone who just believes that they are deserving of everything, or that when they want it, they can have it. And so this can be a really aggravating quality in people. In fact, in most people, I think they find it frustrating when people seem to be or act entitled. And I think when we see signs of this with our kids, it can be really triggering for a lot of parents, specifically if you are a parent who maybe wasn't raised with a lot of wealth, let's say. I can look at myself, and as a daughter of immigrants, like we lived in a really small house, and we lived with a lot of extended family at one time. And there was definitely like this sense of, being in community with your family all the time and honoring the needs of others and respecting elders and really thinking about how to caretake a lot of people around you. And so, when I was a parent, or am a parent, and when my kids were younger, there was a lot for me too, and like wanting to ensure my kids had some of those same values, that they understood the needs of others and how to respect others, and to not think they could just have whatever they wanted or they could get whatever they wanted. And I wanted them to have a sense of like gratitude and understanding of what they were being given. Now, at the same time, I think where we miss the mark a little bit as parents is we just expect that our kids will be grateful or will not be entitled. And the truth is kids need perspective and experience over time to be able to get better at that. So the real answer to the question, right, is like, how do I make sure that my kids don't become entitled adults, is really teaching kids how to tolerate the ability to feel frustrated, or to feel disappointed, or to feel bothered by something, and then to work through an outcome they don't want. So that's really where we can focus our energy, rather than looking at it through entitlement of like, oh, I should get whatever I want. Like, let's look at what the underbelly of that is, which is like if a child's asking for something new and you're like, no, we can't get that right now. They actually feel really frustrated. It's not because they absolutely want that thing. It's that they're bothered with that waiting period, that kind of contingent, that condition, I would say, that you're placing on it. So how do we actually help kids develop frustration, or tolerance to frustration, I should say? So I'm going to share with you 3 things that you can do in the home setting that are really, they're meant to be sort of out of the moment strategies, meaning it's not in the moment that your child's struggling. We're actually going to build this skill while they're playing, while they're in conversation with you, when they're asking for things. I'm going to show you how we can actually just weave this in pretty organically so that we can start building that little muscle for them. So number 1, and I've made videos on this before, but you want to help your kids gain the ability to wait. Often waiting is something that will elicit frustration in kids. So if they have to wait for something that they want, they do feel frustrated. However, if the thing that they want is pretty enticing, or it's motivating enough, they will usually work through the frustration that comes with that wait period. So let's use some examples of how we can build this in pretty organically. So let's say that your child asks you for something that only you can really retrieve for them. Let's say it's a toy that they can't reach. And it feels easy enough for you to just go, yep, no problem, grab it and give it to them. This is the moment that I want you to be hyper aware of how often do we just quickly accommodate these really simple asks, and where can we just organically build in a small wait period. So something like this you might say something like, you know what, I'm happy to get you that, but I need 1 minute because I got to run into the kitchen and turn something off. You're just going to build in something that disrupts you getting the thing that they want. And you're not going to do this in an explicit way. You're not going to be like, well, we're practicing waiting, so I'm going to actually give you a wait time, and then we're not doing that, because our kids will sniff that out and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do the thing she's telling me to do. Instead, we're actually just organically weaving it in, and we're delaying gratification. We're teaching them how to tolerate that wait. So let's say the first few times you do it for like a minute, like, yep, I'll get you that in 1 minute. I'm going to go do this. Let's say now, that your kids say, can we go outside to play? And you have to be there, or based on maybe their ages. So usually we'll go, sure, no problem, when we start getting ourselves ready and we get ready to go outside. I want you to build in a longer wait period. So maybe it's something like, you know what, yes, I would be happy to go outside, but I need at least 15 minutes. And during those 15 minutes, you guys need to sit quietly and play with whatever, like give them some choices to do in the home. But the reason you're building that out is, again, you're increasing their capacity for waiting. And again, within reason, you're going to think about your child's age, their developmental stage, things like that. But ideally, what you want to get to is that through those practices of waiting and delaying that gratification, kids get much better than when they're in a situation and you have to say no to something, or you have to tell them they can't have the thing that they want right in that moment. Once you've practiced this enough times, kids get really good at being able to accept an undesired outcome. They might feel frustrated. They might be like, oh, I wish I could have it now, and you're like, I know, I get that, but that's not a choice right now. But I bet next week we'll be able to get it. Something like that can be really, really effective. So that's number one. Number two, I want you to try playing a game with them, and I want you to make sure you, the parent, go first and have your child who struggles with this, with like, maybe they always want to be first, maybe it's a strong-willed child who likes to kind of call the shots in games and when you play, and I want them to be second. And this is what I want you to think about doing. When you make yourself first, the idea in these games is not to send your child to the point of no return, meaning you're not like setting this boundary where they're going to get to the point where they completely lose it, and now you're trying to just go back in and recover or get them to feel better or get them to calm down. That's not really the aim. The aim is like, it's almost like zone of proximal development, which is a psychology term, which essentially just says like, how far, like where is their edge? Where could you, in theory, have them wait? Is it 30 seconds for them to be for their turn? Could they do a full minute? And then the minute you start to see it's getting a little bit frustrating, you're like, oh my gosh, it's your turn. And you're going to sort of come in there right in that moment. And that's where you're going to meet them where they're at. Don't get super worked up about like, gosh, they can't even wait a minute. They can't even wait 2 minutes. Why are they like this? Like, we can get really discouraged. But the truth is, the more you can get in the habit of just meeting them exactly where they're at and then building from there, it will be a much more successful plan, rather than you being in this back and forth feeling of like wishing they would do something else and then feeling defeated every time they don't do the thing you wish they would do. So let's say a really great way to do this is like baking is an example that comes to mind, or cooking. So let's say you're baking cookies and you have 1 or 2, 3 kids, whomever it is, the family's all together. We're all going to take a turn mixing the dough or mixing the cake batter. And so make yourself first and just start to mix it. And now this is really hard for them to wait. They really wish they were first. And maybe it's 10 seconds at first. And the second you start to see them really getting to that point, you're like, oh, it's your turn, and let them mix. The next time around, you're going to do it a little bit longer, right? Or maybe the next time you do a certain activity. The reason you're going to make yourself first is because you're actually trying to build and develop this skill over time in a really kind of subtle way. You're not overtly saying to them, like, it's going to take a full minute, and if you can't wait that full minute, you don't get to participate in the game. We're not doing that. I'm not saying that doesn't have its own sort of benefit, but that's not really where we're at right now. We're just trying to build this skill and this capacity for your child to develop that ability to tolerate frustration. So that's the second thing that I would do. Build in games where you, the parent, go first, make them second, and really time it, really work to that zone of proximal development. So it's like you have them in their sweet spot. They're just starting to get a little bit riled, and then you're like, oh, guess what? It's your turn. And that way we're helping them build that along the way. And then the last thing is, and this one's hard, but I think it's really important, we have to let them struggle sometimes through a task. And so, what this might look like is kids will often feign inability. And Joe Newman will call these like passive tantrums. He's been on the podcast talking about these before too. I think it was his third time, if you're interested in listening to that. But a passive tantrum isn't the same as like an all out, like on the floor, screaming, kicking, crying, or arguing, yelling. It's not like that. It's more like, I can't do it. I need you to do it for me. And everything's like a little whiny and a little bit like, I just can't do it unless you do it for me. Like there's a lot of sort of feigning of inability. I can't do this without you. And so for a lot of parents, it's really easy to just kind of go like, okay, fine. Or what we typically will do is we'll say to our child, okay, can you ask me for help? Can you change your voice and ask me for help? And this is fine. I get why we do this and it's fair. So this is something like maybe your child's like, I can't put my shoe on. And you're like, oh, I know they can put their shoes on. They do it all day at school. They do it at daycare. They do it wherever. And so now we do one of two things. One, we either just go in there and put their shoe on, or two, we might say to them, I can help you put your shoe on, but I want you to ask me nicely, or I want you to change the way you asked. And so now they make the adjustment, and then maybe it's not as whiny, but they say, can you help me put my shoe on? And we assume it's a language issue. We assume the frustration lies in the fact that they need help and they don't know how to ask for help. But the truth is, if it's me and I know my child, or if it's a child I'm working with in therapy, can do the task at hand, and they're kind of like hemming and hawing, like, I can't and I need you. I don't think it has nothing to do with language. So I would at that point encourage them to keep trying, assuming you have the time. So this might look like, instead of going over and saying, okay, ask me again and I'll help you, you know what, I would be happy to help you, but I think you can do this. I bet if you put your finger on the back of your heel and maybe just pop out the back of your shoe, it might be easier. Or maybe if you do it sitting, or maybe if you try it standing, like you can offer a little bit of a prompt or guidance. And then you might even say, you know what, I want you to give it 2 more tries before I come in there and help you. So again, you're building a little bit of that tolerance for them to actually work through the frustration of a task that feels hard. This is true too. Another example that comes to mind is like a child trying to open a Play-Doh jar, right? Like those can be annoyingly hard sometimes. So maybe they're really struggling, and now they might want to throw the Play-Doh and whatever, and we usually walk over and we do that whole use your words conversation and like, oh, use your words and just ask me for help and I'll help you. And that's fine again, but like I've done this with kids before where like they'll even get so mad about the Play-Doh and maybe they're showing that frustration. And instead of going into right away like a language-based prompt, I might just like crack the Play-Doh can open just a little bit, like just to take that, if depending on their fine motor skills and how hard it might be, just to make it a smidge easier. And then I might hand that back to them and I'll just say, you know what, I think you should try 2 more times. Get those muscles ready. Where are your muscles? Like, just really encourage them, have fun with it, and have them try again. But we always go into this notion that like, if they just ask me for help, then that problem is solved. But again, which in some cases that is a fair strategy. But in this particular case, the thing that's motivating your child to whine is that they can't tolerate the frustration that comes with that challenge. So if we want them to stop whining, we have to teach them how to tolerate frustration that comes with something that's hard. And once they learn how to work through something that's hard, what they'll stop doing is whining and crying and asking you to fix it. Because the problem isn't that they don't have the words. The problem is they can't tolerate the discomfort when something feels challenging. So those are the 3 places I would tell you to start. I do this a lot in my one-on-one coaching, you guys. So I tailor these strategies to your specific child, to your specific family needs. I think about the entire sort of family dynamic, what your day looks like in terms of your structure, and what strategies would be most amenable and most useful to fit within your family dynamic. So if these strategies resonate with you, if you're finding yourself listening to this and going like, oh my gosh, like I just want to be able to message somebody anytime I want and just say, hey, here's what they're doing right now. What do I do? Because I really want to yell. I really want to tell them to stop whining. And I know that's not what's going to help, but it's just programming in me too. And I'm doing all these things. I would definitely encourage you to look at going through my 3-month coaching process, Reclaim Your Calm, 12 weeks to clear and confident parenting. It's one-on-one, high touch. You can text me, you can voice message me. It's like having me in your back pocket for those 3 months so I can support you in real time. We get on calls every single week. We meet, we work on plans. We look at the biggest challenge first, and then we work our way from there. We do things that are going to be developmentally appropriate for your child that also meet their emotional needs. I try to take care of you, the parent, because it starts with us, and it's really important that we have those tools to really understand what our child needs. So if any of this is really resonating with you, and I hope that it is, and you think like, gosh, I would just love to go deeper, I'd love to ask more questions, I really need that support. I would love to know 3 months from now that I will be out of this phase of constantly battling with my kids. I would definitely encourage you to take a look at coaching. I don't often have a lot of open spots, and I have a couple open this summer. I would definitely tell you guys, if you're thinking about it, check out the link in my bio, book a free call with me. I can talk you through it. I can explain whether or not it's even a good fit, but let's just get that ball rolling. If this is the position you're feeling yourself in, like stressed and overwhelmed and constantly feeling like there's just no end in sight, there are so many things we could do together. So I will leave it there. I'll leave you with that. And thank you so much for being here.